Welcome back to the Smugglers Den. I'm your host, Tiny Grimes. This is episode 9, and I'd like to thank, as always, swdestiny.com for hosting the show and just having a great site. I'd like to thank brokenegggames.com, where you can go, buy your stuff, put TG Games in the discount code coupon, and I wanted to alert you to the Patreon page, Tiny Grimes, where we're having a pretty good discussion about a tier list. Putting together a tier list with one person is nearly impossible. It's fairly easy to identify the tier 1 decks, but trying to parse out all the different awesome tier 2 decks that FFG has made and figure out which ones are tier 3, I very much appreciate your help. And so hop on over there and help us out and continue the discussion. And I'm joined this week, as I have been joined every week, by my co-host, Jason Flanzer. What's happening, J-Dog?
Hello, everyone. Not too much. I'm pretty excited to be here. I also want to mention, in lieu of Tiny's mentioning, you can find us on iTunes, which a lot of people do not know. The audio version of the podcast is available on iTunes, so check that out. It is under Tiny Grimes Games, correct?
I think it's just under the Smugglers Den.
Oh, the Smugglers Den. There you go. So I'm excited because I like to listen to it in the podcast personally. So if you're one of those people that loves the podcast, it is available on iTunes for download.
And I'm one of those people as well. Like, I drive to UCLA regularly, long drive, and I listen to podcasts. And yeah, that's a great point, Jason, because the other day someone asked me, they're like, hey man, have you ever thought about putting the podcast on iTunes? And I was like, well, 8 episodes are on iTunes. And he's like, really? I didn't know that. So thank you very much for that, Jason. That was a great point. Also, I'd like to thank real quick our new Patreon subscribers, Brofessor, Jason, Eric, Nicholas, Michael. You guys are all awesome. Thanks so much for the support. And Jason, let's get to it today. I hear you were at a tournament last night.
I was at a tournament. I hear that you were also at that same tournament.
I was. I actually saw you there with my own eyes. It was pretty awesome. A Wednesday night, like a random Wednesday night, 2 days before the tournament, the person says, hey, we've been having a decent turnout. Let's do a tournament. 16 people are there.
Yeah, not so bad. Like I said, this is a store that is new to Fantasy Flight Games products as well. So a lot of the marketing that people normally would have been getting from Fantasy Flight is not really here at that store. They play some X-Wing there and maybe some Armada, but not really the card games. So this is really great to see them really flexing their muscles there, getting some people. And I can't imagine. I'm pretty sure it's been a +2 growth every single week since I've been there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and just a little pub, Paper Hero Games in Sherman Oaks, California. That's where Jason and I are every Wednesday. If you want to stop on by, say hi, play some Destiny, come on over. We're having a great time.
Yeah, they've got a great stock of accessories, and they're doing their best to support the Destiny crowd, so definitely a legitimate shout-out. But yeah, it was a great event. Like you said, 16 players, and like I said, the growth is there. We went from 12 to 14 to 16 for a brand-new game. I think it's feeling really good. As we mentioned a couple weeks ago, the 30-man tournament that we had down south in Long Beach, we know that this game is growing, and that is just very exciting.
Yeah, Okay, so I made an outrageous prediction that everyone said I was insane about, which is everything I say. But I made the claim that this game was going to be bigger than X-Wing and be FFG's biggest game, and everyone told me I was wrong. Jason, what do you think now about that statement?
Well, I think that's not the biggest game, but I think that the potential is certainly there. I mean, we are in Wave 1. So the thing about this game specifically is that this is going to appeal to gamers that play card games, which will be very valuable looking to reach into those magics controlled by Wizards of the Coast, Konami, things like that. Mm-hmm. And that's really powerful. The thing that X-Wing will always have over this game is it's just, I mean, you look at it like there's a little X-Wing. Like I love X-Wing. So there's a little TIE Fighter. There's a Millennium Falcon. So it has that draw a little bit easier. However, this game, I think it has some staying power. And if they end up doing rotation correctly, I think you could be correct.
I'm going to say this right now. This is going to be probably the most controversial statement of all. I kind of wish they didn't make another set for like 6 more months. I love this core set. I think it is phenomenal. I think it's really well balanced, and I just can't imagine the game in a better state than this. I can imagine a more fun version where there's crazier stuff happening, but it's so dang balanced. I would just love to just sit here in this little perfect spot of the game and never move for like a year.
I'm the exact opposite. I really also thought I liked this this world. But I, after really considering the way that this specific game works with the points and the characters, I really think that a refreshment of characters is going to really bring to life old characters, and we're going to see a little bit more of a little bit more diversity in the meta, which I think will be very exciting for me. And I think that with the hive mind mentality that we have with the internet, we're going to boil down to something that by the time that set comes out, we'll be craving for it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And in fact, having said what I just said, all of the top boards at the tournament were Jango Fett. Like, it was all Jango Fett and then one Hyperloop.
Yep, and that's just how it is. It's the hive mind mentality, like I said, and it sucks when you have to run the gambit because you're going to lose some of those games, you're going to win some of those games.
Yeah.
So that can be frustrating. I played it in 3 of my 4 matches, so it was not the most fun, but it is what it is.
It was a weird night for me because I actually played two times. I played Elite Kylo Vader. Like, that was 2 of my matches, and then the other 2 were Jango Veers. So it was like the absolute meta deck and the what? Okay, like, well, I know it's in the meta, but it's not like a top meta deck or anything.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I'll give a shout out to the boys from the UK who recently posted a tier list of their own, and they had a lot of mono blue, both from the heroes and the villains.
I saw that list,
that
and I almost fell out of my chair.
To them, the really big, powerful characters, getting them up, getting those titans to battle, that's kind of their style. Obviously, you do still have some power in the beginning if you're running something like Darth Vader, where you're going to have the discard and the powerful dice, or something like a Luke. I think there was even like a Luke Ray deck that was in that list. I could be mistaken, but they seem to favor that, and that's not necessarily bad. I mean, sometimes combating those characters, if you fail a couple of times at trying to aggro them down, it might feel like the only way to actually handle them is to have big characters of your own. So I think that that's probably what you're seeing, is that microcosm being able to swirl around and come to their own conclusions, which isn't necessarily wrong. It's just that's just how they play. And this is very common, specifically in card games and miniature games. You see the different elements of different countries. So when we come to the World Championship specifically, or maybe independent world tournament, we're going to see some really cool clashing of the Titans. But
I really love that.
I think Mono Blues, it's a thing.
I just love that about games. Like, Game of Thrones was the same way. We in America had our hive mind meta, and then the Europeans would be like, you're just wrong. Like, you're just wrong. Here's what the meta should look like. And we're like, you guys are idiots. What are you even talking about? Do you even play the same game as us? And I really like how that can happen. So while I said I almost fell out of my chair, it was because it's not the meta I've been seeing. I'm not saying they're wrong. It just hasn't reflected the meta that I know of as Tier 1.
Yeah, it's certainly funny. I love when you get to that proving ground. It is certainly the best. To quote another game, there's a game called Guild Ball. It's a miniatures game. It's like mob football, soccer. And I remember one of the big American tournaments was won by a certain character as like the leader of the team, of the captain of the team. And all of the UK members, because it's such a big UK community because the game is from the UK, they're all like, you guys are crazy, because everyone was crying broken and stuff. Yeah. And then the World Championship happened in the UK, and the top 2 teams were both Obulus, who was the guy they were crying was broken. So clearly there is a little bit of truth there, and sometimes you're going to find that someone's going to be right and someone's going to be wrong. So it's really fun to see how that actually shakes out.
Yep, it'll be interesting. I know for myself, I ran a Django Elite Bala Trooper deck. We've alluded to it a little bit on the show. It's become kind of a popular thing. I thought it's been the best deck in the meta for how long has it been? Like 2-3 months now that we've been thinking this?
Yeah, I mean, since the game came out.
Yeah. Since it was like the first day, you were like, hey, Tiny, check out this deck. And I was like, geez, this Jason Flanzer dude knows nothing about the game. All his decks are terrible.
It's Balatique. I mean, how could he be good?
And then I looked at this deck, and I'm like, this deck is just bad. And then we played a game, and I was like, oh, God. And like, because the problem was when I first saw it was all 2-character metas, and I was like, Balatique's not that great. And then the meta suddenly shifted to be like these 3 and 4-character lineups, and you're like, oh my goodness, Balatique is a beast now.
Yeah, and even then, I mean, with the 2 characters, it's with less dice. Sometimes it's harder to focus, or specifically if you're being focused, if you can even take out that character, you're going to be removing a lot of dice from the pool. So he actually, his fragility isn't so in effect, and so on and so forth. So I do really like it. It's a lot of fun, and it has a really nice burst. So pretty exciting.
It's not. I feel like it's not quite as bursty as Django Veers, but it's a little more consistent.
Yes, I agree completely. Definitely the consistency, and definitely the trick cards, right, that you get out of the yellow for playing the yellow. The problem with Django Veers is it's what you see is what you get, right? It's WYSIWYG, and so having those dice, they're just going to keep discarding cards and re-rolling and praying, and then that's kind of their game plan.
So I'm going to talk about my day real quick, and then you talk about yours. I had 2 Django Veers games. They were the 2 close games. The one crushing the dude. Killed Veers, reactivated Balatik, rolled like 5 more damage. He was just screwed. I had Bala standing with like 3 damage. The Trooper had maybe 2 on it. Django had 4, and his Django was unharmed. He was about to take 5 or 6. He rolls out like, I think he even went, I don't know, maybe it was before I rolled him. He rolled just like the nut roll. He rolled like 11 damage with Django and just went, Balatik's dead, Stormtrooper's dead. And I was like, what happened? Like, the game was over 2 seconds ago until you did that. And now my Django has 4 damage, yours has none. I am so screwed right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how the game can go. And that's just that's all you can really say. I mean, the Django Veers meta, it's like I said, what you see is what you get. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not.
But the funny thing is, that's the one I won. Like, I was able to make some really good battlefield grabs and put some dug-ins down and get a bunch of shields and just kind of like chip away with backup muscles, making him activate first, these kind of things. And then that was game 2. Game 3, I actually lost to my dear friend John Bruno, who I've gotten into the game. So it's like, if I'm going to lose to someone, I would rather it be him because I want him to be more invested. And if he's able to do well in the tournament, that's good. But it was kind of the same thing. He got 2 really good Django Veers rolls. I was way ahead again. And it just, the rolls were too good. And then the end of the game was so cool, man. We both had our guys close to like 5 damage. And we both had 3 upgrades on them. And so we both wanted armed to the teeth. So like discard all our cards pretty much, draw up a new hand. He gets armed to the teeth. I don't. And we're like backup muscling each other back and forth. And then I'm ahead. And he just looks at me and he's like, I can't believe it. You win. You win with the arm to the teeth. And I was like, yep, I sure do. Except it's one of the 2 cards left in my deck. I don't have it. And then he's like, boo, arm to the teeth. I win then. And it was the top card in my deck.
Yep, that is awesome.
So it was a good game. Apparently, I thought I was handling his god rolls really well. But after the game, a bunch of people were watching. This guy's like, oh, what happened early? I missed it. And I was like, yeah, you got a really good god roll. And he's like, yeah, I heard it from across the room. I was like, oh, that's probably not me handling it as well as I should be then.
The frustration of a card.
Then I won game 4, took 3rd place, got a couple packs, and my entry fee back. So that was cool. It was a good night for me. How'd it go for you, Jason?
I ended up going 2-2. I played Hanrei for the first time really this week, and it's a lot of fun. I really like the options it has. I like the things it can do. I had my first game came down to me cheating out some damage that was able to just push me over the edge and deny him his big character, which was really great. The second game I played was one of the Django Veers games, and it was also a really close game. I had a turn where I could have killed Django before he activated, and I roll my dice. He electroshocks my 2 damage.
Oh.
I re-roll my dice, and then he doesn't like use my 3. And then I flip my dice to a 3, and he doesn't like use my 3 again.
Oh.
So, and if any of those land, then I get 1 extra turn without Django.
Yep.
I think at that point I probably pick up the game, but it was not to be, and I ended up losing that. And then just played a couple more games, and same kind of thing happened. It was Django Veers time, and you either beat it when you get it out or you don't. And it was a lot of fun. It was really close, and I really enjoyed myself. So it was, even though I was hitting those matchups that are kind of coin flippy, it was a lot of fun, and I really like the Hanrei deck, and I think it's going to be absolutely disgusting in the near future when the new cards come out.
Yeah, what I really hate about the Hanrei deck right now is it feels like a slightly worse Django Veers deck. So then when you play that Django Veers matchup, it just feels like you're kind of playing from behind, and I don't like that feeling.
I'm not certain that that's actually the case because you can do some really nasty cheat turns where you can gain enough to get a roll and a reroll before resolving. For example, if you use like it happened to me last night in one of my last games, I had $5. Actually, I had $6, I think, and I play a one with the Force over a Jedi robes, which gets me another action.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had 2 holdout blasters. Now hear me out here. I play a hunker down over one of them. So yes, I'm losing the value of the money, but I infamous the hunker down.
Yep.
So I'm getting 2 actions. Then I play the Hans gun on top of the hunker down, getting yet another 2 actions. Then I can roll and either re-roll or focus if I roll it with the one with the Force, giving me the win.
Yep.
I actually just naturally rolled it, but I would have had the option to do so otherwise. So it was good. That was a good. That's what you can kind of do. Also, another thing about Han Rey compared to the Jango Veers is if you want to know that there's a possibility that your deck can't have the time to react, you can actually play Han Rey into that matchup, getting you that time to react. Unfortunately, it's less consistent than having it every turn like Jango, but you can do the ambush play and roll out. If Jango rolls, you still can either react to his dice or go ahead and use yours before he can even activate. So that is an advantage that you can inherently have in that matchup, and I think the Han Rey does have some good moves, but I do think it's still missing a couple cards. Hero Yellow, it has some good ones, but I think that there's going to be some even better ones, specifically the Fix All Your Dice card. I think it's going to be a massive card for that deck because it's often going to represent about 8 to 9 damage.
I kind of feel like right now we don't have the best Han Rey deck either. I kind of feel like we found a good one early and stopped and just went, that's good. With my friend John, he's just a world-class card player, and he looked at my Han Rey deck, which is a very typical one, and he was like, these 4 cards need to come out. Like, they just have to. And he's been tweaking, and he's found some interesting options. And I think there's a way to make it a little bit better. I don't think we can make it a ton better, but I think we can optimize it further than where it currently is.
Yeah, it's fun to build. I mean, there's certainly some options, and I know that I looked at like Zach from Team Covenant, for example. He plays a lot of it, and he posted a write-up for his deck. He has a lot of tech cards in his, but
interesting.
But it's definitely interesting.
Yep. Speaking of interesting decks, if you haven't seen last week, I put up Vader Raider 2.0. I put up a list and a video of how it plays, and then a video of the game itself, so make sure you check that out. I played that a little bit last night. That was a lot of fun. I'm still not convinced any incarnation of Vader Raider is 1.0 or Tier 1, but I like the deck. Like, it smashes real hard.
Yeah, no, I like it too. It's funny because specifically in certain matchups, he does put a little bit of a clock on it, which I like, that you, even though it's an aggressive deck, it kind of has an edge in an interesting matchup. For example, like the Hyperloop deck, activating Vader every turn does get you the option of milling him out because they discard, so they can't just loop forever.
Sure.
So that's really nice. There's just certain matchups where it's just really frustrating. Also, like even in the Jango Veers matchup, because you can do the direct damage, it's really hard to stop things like Force Strike, and that's just going to be just enough to be able to pull out some kills without really them having the opportunity to control your dice. On top of the fact that you're limiting their options by making them discard a card every single turn, that's just really effective, specifically in Jango Veers. And I hate to keep talking about it, but we did play it like a total of 6 times last night.
Yeah,
specifically in that matchup. Specifically in that matchup, it's good because almost every time I play, I would say every other turn, the guy ends up with no cards in his hand at the end of the turn. So he did something, either playing a card or re-rolling, that really screws you over. For example, in one of the games I lost, I had nearly killed Django, and I ended up finishing off the turn that I'm speaking about. And I had Han with 2 damage on him and 2 shields, so effectively full health and a full health Ray. And his very last dice roll, he re-rolls a Crime Lord. That he pulls out of his hand to get it, stick it. I unpredictable it to make him reroll it again. He still sticks it, ends up killing Han. That's the difference between the game, because at this point, that turn I resolved Han's dice, killing Django, and it was Veers versus Ray, and I just narrowly lost the end of that game. But I mean, imagine if the last card hadn't have been there. I'm not saying that matchup is necessarily the same as the Han Rey and the Vader Raider, but it's the same kind of feeling where that cards are just so effective in this game, just having them as a resource.
And by the way, that Crime Lord Ace in the Hole combo came out of a Jango Veers deck, am I right?
Yeah.
That's a really interesting include in Jango Veers. You don't normally see that. I'm not sure it's right, but it certainly is interesting.
Yeah, no, it is interesting for sure.
One quick thing about it, I've seen a lot of people say that they think Vader Bala is the better choice. And I think it's a more interesting choice, but I really just think being able to discard a card to resolve the Tusken Raiders die becomes incredibly valuable as the game moves on and there's more control elements on the board or in hand. Like it's like Django has 2 damage left. If you have a lightsaber and the Tusken die, there's a decent chance one of those is going to do 2 damage and kill Django. If you roll it, he respawns, and then you just discard to kill him. I just feel like Tusken Raider is a little bit undersold right now.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and completely disagree with the people that say that. Not with you, but with the people who say that, because their die are actually the exact same, except for you trade +2 range damage for 1 melee damage, which 1 melee is superior. Because you don't have the range damage to augment. And then you trade the focus, which is arguably the best thing about Balatik in the matchup, or in the pairing, for 3 damage for $1. Now, 3 damage for $1, it's fantastic. It absorbs a lot of hate, like card hate, which is really good when you're playing Darth Vader, because you also have Vader. So if you're just, I'll roll out my Tusken Raider with a Holocron, you have 2 different things that could like show up and really ruin your opponent's day. So it's really, really, really good to have that 3 damage for $1. And the fact that you can do it before they can do anything makes this almost like out of nowhere damage, like out of hand damage.
Yeah. And usually they don't kill him. They want to kill Vader. So oftentimes you end up with an almost dead Vader and a Tusken Raider against whatever, and you need to kill that thing before it kills Vader. And even once Vader dies, I mean, if the Tusken Raider has, you know, a holocron force power and a lightsaber, that's not a bad dude just to be able to discard and, you know, cheat out some damage.
Yep.
All right. Moving on from that, then I want to talk about like a general playing tip, and it's called playing to your outs. And I feel like playing to your outs in your deck is one of the things that really separates like a mid-level Destiny player from an upper-level Destiny player. And what I mean by this is understanding your deck and understanding what you have left and how to play around it. So a really basic example is I have dug in my deck. It's not in my hand, right? So I don't have this motivation that I have to grab the battlefield to use this dead card in my hand. But if I know it's coming, especially if I have 2 left and 12 cards in the deck, it really behooves me to just grab that battlefield in case I draw it. In other words, playing to the outs that are left in my deck.
Yeah, I mean, if you're running any kind of battlefield requirement deck, I mean, you're going to want to be grabbing that battlefield. And with, like you said, like with playing to your outs, it is really important to understand what's coming up, specifically when you have to come to the consideration at the end of the next turn, what can I discard to potentially draw those cards, because that is a skill that is really important, and specifically with playing to your outs, but just understanding your deck and what you need to accomplish your win condition.
Yeah, and another great example of it was that game with John and I, where we both knew, like, it's near the end of the game. I'm low on cards in my deck. Maybe I'm going to end up milling myself, but you know what's worth it? If I can hit that arm to the teeth, I'm going to win, right? Like, all I need is 1 damage. So discarding all your cards to get to it is a very wise move playing to your outs. Like, you might have good cards in your hand, but that out is actually going to win you the game. You should be playing to it.
Yeah. I see this a lot when I'm considering the option of outplaying some control. So, for example, just with the Han Rey deck, looking for the holdouts, looking for the DL-44 heavy pistols, or whatever it's called. Looking for the infamous to make the ambush happen so I can play that, so I can get those free actions. Looking for a tactical mastery possibly from a red villain, or maybe a hit and run from a red hero. Looking for those options so that you can take your game that you've already set up and resolve those dice in a way that you can make them really effective is very strong. Or maybe like a leadership for a Luke if he's fully kitted out. At this point, if you get leadership, it's going to be 5 dice twice in a turn. It's like you pretty much just have 2 Lukes. So it's very good.
Yeah, a lot of it is understanding matchups also, right? It's like, yeah, you have, and this has happened to me all the time, right? So the first turn comes and goes, and you have 4 cards still left in your hand. If you have 4 cards in your hand after the first turn, you should be pitching 2. Like, they might be good cards, but you really need to think about matchup versus outs in your deck, what is more needed? Very unlikely you're keeping 4 cards.
Yep. No, I mean, it's those are good points.
All right, so there you go. Hopefully that is somewhat helpful. Play your outs, know your deck. Really, Jason, number one tip I could ever give a player is know your deck inside and out. You should know every card in your deck. If I say, hey, do you have this card in your deck? It should be a snap yes or no. It shouldn't be like, I don't know. Do I have Disarm in there? I don't remember. Like, you can't play a game not knowing your deck.
It's true. And another thing that's really important too, and it's important when you start to learn, is really focus on your starting hand and what you're looking for out of your mulligan, because the mulligan is very powerful in this game. It's a very, very generous mulligan compared to other games. So consider what you want, look for it, get it, and that will help you. That'll help propel yourself through the game in a way that's really good. And also, while you do need to mull aggressively for things, don't be too greedy if you are concerned with your deck's ability to actually produce things that you may actually need. For example, if you're running 9 or 10 dice upgrades in a deck and you draw a weapon that is playable on the turn 1, like, you might want to keep it if your deck requires upgrades for your characters to become stronger. So even though it's not ideal for you, as long as it's something that you think you can play early, it's probably worth it.
Yes, that's the really tricky thing, right? You get like a 2-cost weapon, and it's your 3rd best weapon, right? It's not really the weapon you want to play right away, but you have that choice of like, what if I'm mulligan to get no weapons?
Yeah, that's the worst. It's actually the worst.
Yeah, for sure.
If your deck requires dice to operate, like a control deck or a character or like a really strong character deck, where like you have something like Darth Vader, like, it's not really the end of the world if you don't get something on the Vader turn 1. It really isn't. If you have all the control elements, if you draw that instead, then it's not so bad because you can control their dice. He's going to do his thing. You're probably also going to suck resources out of him trying to stop you, or you're going to bash him in the face. You move forward. It's not that big of a deal. But if you're playing weenie and you need those upgrades to be able to shoot guns and things like that, you really need to have the right upgrades.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Or any upgrades, I should say.
I wanted to talk today about underrated cards. And so Jason and I are each going to offer up our 5 underrated cards. And then let me throw out a caveat that every one of these cards, someone out there is going to go, what are you talking about underrated? That card's amazing. Everyone knows that. So just know that going in, because FFG did a really good job with this set. Almost all the cards have value and are being used in the meta to some degree. So when I say underrated, I'll explain why I think a particular card is underrated, but I do know you may not agree with me. All right. I'm going to go first here because this is a crazy one. I'm going to say Retreat. And Jason, I did not even own this card before last night, and I had forgotten it existed, actually. I was going through my collection, and I was like, I feel like there's another red card. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's right, Retreat exists. And so Retreat says, pay 2, your opponent may take 1 action, then end the action phase. And I haven't tried this in a deck yet, but I'd really quite like to. You play a really fast deck, you roll out all your guys, you resolve them all, and then you just play this. And they're like, oh, well, I had like 5 more actions left. What do you think, Jason?
I think that there's one big problem with this card, and it's the current characters in the red hero selection. Because what you do is you roll out your character. Like not Finn. Poe is going to be the ideal character to play a card like this because you're going to want to roll, do big things really fast, and then retreat. Now, the problem is that if you're running the Rebel Trooper or Leia or Akbar, it's unlikely that your ability to do a lot quickly is there. So you're really going to want those high-value dice. Leia's not so bad, but because this is specifically a hero card, that's where I fear it. Fear of failing. That being said, looking forward, I do think that this card has a lot of value and can really, it can really put a big clamp in someone's gears. Yeah,
it feels like right now, because it's such an aggro meta, like it feels like it doesn't hold a really great spot. But if we move into more of a control meta, this could be devastating, right? Like they have
I agree.
9 more actions ready, and you're just like, boop, you get 1.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, I feel the same way about Hyperspace Jump, which is a great card, but they both do very similar things, and I think that this could be really big. And I think that I personally don't like it, but I can see where someone will play against me, and I'd be like, damn, There's a lot of that in this game where you're just like, oh, look at that card.
Yeah.
Just nuts.
When someone plays it against me, it's going to be the worst blowout ever because I will not see it coming at all. I've never once factored what if they play retreat into my decision making. Not even once in the whole history of my games.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's good.
All right, let's hear one of yours, Jason.
Mine is going to be a classic favorite of mine, and I've talked about it on the cast before. It's Probe.
Was it Probe?
It's Probe. It's Probe. Yes.
I knew it.
Probe is, to me, just so good. In this game, I value zero-cost events and abilities and upgrades and things of that nature very highly. Not paying resources, it's something you can always do. You can not pay the resource. You can pay zero. Yeah. There's nothing that can prevent you from playing zero currently. There's nothing that can prevent you from playing something, really, in this game at this point. So being able to do it at any time, it is great. It gives you information, and the more savvy of a player you are, the more you understand the matchup, the more you understand the game. Looking at 2 random cards in your opponent's hand is just going to be good. Yeah. Furthermore, discarding those events, that is great news. Usually you're going to find out 2 things. One, you just pulled 2 awesome control or very powerful events that they were waiting for the right moment to play from their hand, or you're going to see that their hand is full of really expensive stuff that is scary but likely allows you to play aggressive unless they end up discarding it, because they're likely, especially if you probe at the end of the turn, you pick up 2 big force powers out of a force user deck. Then you're like, well, you're only drawing 3 cards. If I see one of those 3 cards, I can probably safely assume that you're not going to be hitting your deflect, or you're not going to be hitting whatever you thought they'd be hitting. So it just gives you a lot of information, and sometimes it really just gets rid of some really big people Specifically in a matchup like if I'm playing a character like Django Veers as an example, I like Probe a lot because you're often going to be people are going to be wanting to play those dodges. They're going to be holding them. They're going to play out their upgrades, and they're going to hold those dodges, hold those deflects, and now you can potentially get it out of their hand for free.
Yep, it's a total blowout. I was playing against John last night in a warm-up game, and I was playing Vader Raider, and I had a whole hand, and one of the cards was Force Strike, and I had the choice. He had 4 damage left on his main character. I could Force Strike first and then backup muscle, but I didn't want him to be able to do anything, like play a heal card. And so I did the backup muscle first, thinking I was being really smart. And then he's like, Probe! I was like, oh my god. And he missed the Force Strike, thank goodness. But it was one of those moments where you're like, maybe I was being too cute there. Maybe I should have just taken the 3 when I had the chance.
Yep. No, I agree. I think it's incredible.
Yeah, my only problem with the card is opportunity costs. The cost of the card is amazing. Its effect is good. The only reason it's not in all my decks is because there's other cards I want more. That's the only reason it's getting cut these days.
No doubt. I like it in the decks. I want to have a name for a deck like this where effectively you're just spending your money on upgrades, and that's like your deck, right? Which is pretty much like what you see out of most aggro decks. So it really works well and accompanies those cards well as you're drawing them up. It also allows you to play out your hand so you're not stuck with cards. Because if you have like 1-cost cards that are maybe really good, but you either don't have the correct opportunity or the correct ability to use them or the money to use them, sometimes your hand gets stuffed up and then you get stuck with hard decisions that you don't necessarily want to make. So it's really easy to play. It's real fun to play. It really pisses them off when you hit the cards they've been holding on to.
Oh, yeah.
So just playing it, winging it, it's really good to me.
It's so good in Django decks because your opponent will often try to stall you out, right? And like, go ahead, activate Django, and being able to play a Probe after like they've played an upgrade, you've played something, they play another upgrade. They're like, ha! Now you have to roll them. Well, now they're down to 3 cards, and those 3 cards are the cards they were going to use to control your dice after you rolled Django, right? So you play the Probe, you pull the cards, now you can safely roll Django. It's just great.
It's nuts.
All right, another card that I really like, I actually played it in 1 deck, but I haven't gotten it in many decks, is Against All Odds. Against All Odds, let me bring it up here. Sorry, it is not called Against All Odds. I always call it that. It's called Abandon All Hope. I don't know why I think it's called Against All Odds. Okay, Abandon All Hope, 2-cost event, blue villain. Force an opponent to choose either lose all their resources or discard all cards in their hand. This card is a massive blowout card when you hit it in a good spot. Like there's several decks that are trying to save up for Falcons and stuff, and if you can hit them with 4 resources, it's a horrible decision. Just horrible.
Yeah, this card. So you're in the mid game, maybe turn 3. You were savvy and you collected some resources. Maybe did a little trick. You got 1 or 2 resources. You start your turn. Now you have 4. You're like, okay, well, I'm going to start by doing this. Maybe you need to roll out a character or something like that, or something of that nature. And then they play Abandon All Hope. You're looking at 5 cards in your hand and 4 resources on the board. Yep. There's about a 0% chance that you discard your hand here.
I'm pretty sure it's a negative 20%.
Yeah, it's like there's no chance. So you pretty much just say, like, get rid of all of your resources. Yeah. Now, you can put people to hard decisions later if they're halfway through their hand, but being able to wipe their resources on a turn where you think that they want to do something great, specifically if they're like rolling a holocron out to try to get one of the, they're like, oh, I'll be conservative and I'll try to get my holocron going. Or, oh, look at all these guns that I have because I'm playing Hyperloop and I've got all of these money to spend on these guns. They're super, effective, really high damage on the hired guns. Maybe I'm looking to play a Falcon or a Launch Bay at this point.
Oh, yeah.
And then you Abandon All Hope. They hate you so much.
Oh, yeah. My favorite is like, you can tell it's like a Jabba deck, right? And they've been holding these 2 cards forever, and they're saving up your money, and it's Ace in the Hole and Crime Lord, right? And you're like, oh, he's got 6 now. Damn, he's in business. You have 0. Either get rid of the cards you've been saving the whole game, or get rid of all your money and start over. That's just a devastating game-ending moment often.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty bad. I mean the worst part about this card is that it does cost 2, so I think you do have to come from a rich environment often, or an environment in which both players doing nothing is advantage you. And often I think that that's kind of like a Darth Vader situation where I have a 2-die Vader, and like, what do you have? So because considering there's probably no better natural character in the game, and early Abandon All Hope can really strip them of that. If you're happy to trade a card into resources for the resources they have, at that point it's good. Yeah. Oh, right. Sorry about that.
What do you got next?
What do I got next? I'm going to pick a card that I trolled you so hard about. And I started playing it because I really had 2 card slots and I had no good ideas to play what to play. And I played this card and I found that through time, this card's not only okay, I actually think it's really good in the right situations. And that's Natural Talent.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This card looks really bad. I often would say that for $1, you need to be getting 2 damage out of a card if you're playing it. Getting 1 damage is not worth it.
Yeah.
So it says, it's a hero card for red. It says cost 1. Resolve 1 of your dice, increasing its value by 1. You're like, why would I want that? It's got a picture of Poe, so you're sitting there thinking about damage the whole time.
Yep.
Well, the good news is this card says resolve 1 of your dice, importantly, especially because it's a red card, it doesn't say red dice, it's any dice, increasing its value by 1. So this can be played on anything. Common plays include people playing against Akbar, getting down to 2 dice in their hand, 2 cards in their hand. You roll a discard. You pay 1 to make them discard 2 cards, and it's a dice, a card, and a resource for 2 of their cards and 2 damage. Amazing. You're playing Akbar.
Oh,
they
yeah,
pass. This one. You focus 3 dice with Natural Talent. Now you're turning a blank or a shield on a Rebel Trooper into 2 damage for 1. So now we're getting our 2 for 1 on the damage. Or maybe we're looking at the only thing it really doesn't work on is resources, because obviously that's just a waste of everything. But furthermore, damage that I was so maligning the whole time that I was playing this card, I actually found that I use this card for damage all the time, because there's always that 1 damage. People understand your limits. And being able to play a card that pushes your limits, sometimes that's nice. Now, do I prefer to use it for the discard and the focus? Absolutely. Do I think this is probably only good with Akbar at the moment? Most likely. But I do believe that because it's Red Hero, he's the staple of Red Hero in my opinion. I think that it's really good with Akbar, and I really, really enjoyed playing it. And eventually my goal was to cut it for something else, and I just I couldn't bring myself to do it. It just was too good in my games.
Yeah. It wasn't my original Luke Akbar version where I was trying to get max damage out of hand. So I was going like willpower times 2, riposte times 2, natural talent times 2. I had all-ins and all the stuff, and I eventually ended up cutting it for more different tricks and some more consistent damage. But it's one of those cards that I agree, it's a definitely underrated card. I still don't think it's great, but it's certainly not a bad card.
Yeah, the discard is really going to be where you're going to hit them because they're going to not expect it. And it's going to be a really big hit.
Yeah.
Specifically I've been playing a lot against Dooku, and I love attacking Dooku with my red hero deck because they're like, I'll just start discarding cards. Then they realize like they're going to take more damage and get rid of the cards they want. And eventually they start playing conservative, and it's just a single scout plus a natural talent to get rid of 3 of their cards.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's really frustrating because generally that Dooku player is playing a pretty controlling deck. So getting rid of their cards is not something that they want.
And like you were saying, your opponent often knows exactly how much damage you can do, right? And so they're like, okay, oh, he has just enough to kill me. But if I hunker down, he'll be 1 short. And then I'll maybe be able to heal or have 1 more turn or hunker down next turn and I'll live. And then you just go, natural talent, you're dead. And they're like, oh.
It's freaking bizarre how often that is the case.
Yeah.
Like I said, I would not play it if I knew that my goal was to play it for damage. But at the end of the day, I end up resolving it for damage all of the time.
Yeah.
And additionally, finally, when you're playing Akbar, 2 dice, you're going to have a lot of resources. It's going to happen. You're probably playing data pads. Almost every red card has additional resources, promotion, and things like that. And so the cost of it isn't even really that relevant in the deck, often, I find.
Sure. My next card is a card that you'll agree with is great. The only question will be, is it actually underrated or not? And that's Fight Dirty. Fight Dirty's 1 cost event. Remove any number of your yellow dice and deal damage to a character equal to the number of dice you just removed. Last night, a Vader was at 7. I went backup muscle. She rolled Vader. I just went Fight Dirty. That's the game. And she was like, what? So Fight Dirty out of nowhere for 5 is real solid.
Fight Dirty is my favorite card in the game. It is what I want to play more than any card in the game. It is the kind of card that one day when I can get it back out of my graveyard, I will be very happy to play it again.
Oh my god!
It will just be
this as a hero card.
Oh my god, I know, right? It would be nuts. But I mean, I'm literally just like drooling over playing this card every time I draw it. I'm making decks just to play it. I think it's amazing. I think it could be so much damage. And like I said, that unexpected damage to me is just very powerful.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? This card is only going to get better. Imagine a mono yellow deck with 3 characters that can pretty reliably set up 7 yellow upgrades.
Yeah, I mean, it's nuts.
You just roll your dice and then kill whoever you want. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, no, I agree.
All right, what's your next card?
I'm going to go with a real oddball.
Ooh,
and,
like it.
I think that there's ways to build this so that it really does a lot of work. And
is it Darth Vader?
And I kind of I've been building decks with it and playing it online kind of in secret, and it's been really good. I'm really excited to bust it out. And it's not a card that you put in your deck, and it's not a character. It's actually a battlefield. And it's Separatist Base. It's the one that when you claim, each opponent deals 1 unblockable damage to one of their characters.
Okay.
At first, I was like, this card is too risky, right? I can't have them doing damage to me. It's just not really that great. Well, first of all, if you build your deck to claim, then you can do it. I would say that like Luke Akbar, Vader Raider, those are the really good claiming decks. And something like that, when you're really looking to get that damage across, you will find that Separatist Base will really push the limit. And the fact that it's unblockable is sometimes even better, specifically if you're running a deck that has Kylo Ren's lightsaber, which is the deck that I'm running it in. It does a lot of damage, and I find that it's really, really effective. I've really liked it. I was playing Imperial Armory in the deck, and I eventually just found that it was doing too much for them. And outside of the race, I think Separatist Base is really good. So I know it's risky. I like the risk. I think that if I make a deck that I know can pop you before it can pop me, this is the kind of card that I want to see.
Yeah, I feel like it's not that risky, especially if you're running like 3 characters or 2 healthy characters. You can afford to take a damage or 2 throughout the game, knowing that like a Jango Veer's fragile deck can't afford to take the damage throughout the game. I feel like it gives you a leg up.
Yeah, I played my very first game, so it is actually a Darth Vader deck. It is actually funny enough, it's a Vader Kylo deck, which you were talking about.
Oh, okay.
It has a ton of health just for 2 characters.
Yeah.
And I actually am running another card that I'm kind of teching into this deck that it's not really tech, but I don't really see it as much anymore as Immobilize. And I've been looking to get shields out, and it actually has been better than I thought it's been. I thought Immobilize was going to immediately get cut when I put it in, and I find that in the games it's been pretty nice. And I'm just playing dice, resolving them real fast, and grabbing Separatist space, and it's really pushed the foot on the neck of the player. Nice. I really wanted to find a way to play it alongside Backup Muscle, but I also find that Backup Muscle is also counterintuitive to using the Separatist base because it takes additional actions. So I was like, let's narrow the choices, align the damage types, and make it something great. And specials and resources, shields, and melee damage. I mean, that's pretty much all you do in that deck. And
I like it.
It's been very good.
I feel like this meta has really shifted to a grab the battlefield quick meta. For good players, you give up some dice to do that, and I think this really rewards you for doing that, which is great.
Yeah, and having Vader and or Kylo go first is also like really good. Like it's just like you want to get it out there anyway. So I like it. Separate space. I never see it. Like I don't play against it very often.
Yeah, I see it every now and then. My next card is going to be one I've literally never seen anybody play. So it might not be underrated. It might just be bad. But I still think Local Garrison is a card that we just haven't found the deck for yet. I think it might be a tier 1 card, and we're just not finding it. So it's 3 cost, support. Each opponent gains 1 fewer resource during each upkeep phase to a minimum of 1. If you can put your opponent on 1 and then play resource disruption dice so that they can't save up for a second one without getting hammered, it's real hard to do much of anything. Like you can play a die mitigation, but you're not playing decent weapons. You're just kind of limping along at only 1 per turn.
Yeah, I'm playing 2 of them in like the rainbow deck where you're running. It's Balatik, Night Sister, and 2 Stormtroopers. Mm-hmm. And the deck makes a ton of resources because you're running both Underworld Connections and you're running Drudge Work.
Yep.
So getting that out, like I got that out turn 1 the other day, and like it just the game was over. Like I was so impressed with the power of this card. It was just insane. Like I went turn 1, action 1, Drudge Work. Next action, use the Drudge Work. Next action, play Local Garrison. The guy's like, he gains 2 resources next turn. I'm like, no, you only gain 1. He's like, wait, that's not an event. Like he thought like I was trying to like reduce his resources to 1, but he had none at the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, it just sits out and you just only gain 1.
Yep.
So next turn he literally did nothing.
Yep.
He already played no cards.
Yep.
And then the next turn he saved his resource and he played 1 upgrade. And then the next turn he did nothing again.
Yeah.
Maybe he played an event. So he was just like, just choked, and it was annoying. It's very powerful. It's very expensive, but it's very powerful.
Yeah. The only like I had built a full on choke deck with that, with Abandon All Hope, with Occupation. The problem that I was thinking about is Holocron gets around it really well, and that bugs me. But Holocron was much more popular before. I feel like now that we've shifted into this Django meta, Holocron is still universally known as being good, but it's sort of dipping a bit in how often you see it at the top tables.
Yeah, I wonder about like a double trooper Vader deck could use it. I think it's kind of interesting.
That was a deck that I loved way back when. It was my favorite deck for a while when we had a more limited card pool and just playing on Tabletop Simulator and only half the cards have been spoiled. That was actually my favorite deck. I'm wondering if there is a deck in there.
Yeah, it's tough. I hate playing expensive cards when you only have 3 dice because you're very limited on the ability to gain resources.
Yeah.
So that's
you have to play Drudge Work, but if you don't see it, then it's pretty rough.
Yeah, it is. But God, that card is just a nut stop.
Yeah. All right, what's your next card?
My next card is going to be a card with dice. We haven't had one yet.
Whoa, there's cards with dice?
There's cards with dice in this game.
Dang.
My next card is actually going to be a card that gets included in a lot of decks when you're playing these kind of characters. So I don't think it's not that you don't see it. You actually see it quite a bit, but I'm more and more impressed every time I see it, and because I definitely wrote it off because I have like 1,000 of these, and that's the Raised Staff.
Oh, yeah.
Raised Staff is just consistent, and it is good. Yeah. It really does beat face, has 3 damage sides, and then a little removal on the backside, and with a resource. It works. It's a great pogo to play your one with the forces, or maybe even force throws afterwards. It's good. I often don't feel too fantastic upgrading a lightsaber onto it because I don't think it's that much better. And the lightsaber synergy with Ray's staff is so high because of that consistent ability to supply you with a melee side to modify.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's good. It's really good.
I'm going to do a whole video soon about like all the mistakes I've made since the beginning and misevaluating cards and this kind of stuff. I think it'll be educational for people to see all the missteps I've made, and this was certainly one of them. Ray staff early, like out of the starter deck, I was like, okay, this is great. And then once we saw all the other weapons, I was like, oh boy, I don't like Ray staff anymore, and I just didn't play it for a while. And people started saying, like, you're an idiot. You should play it in a Luke deck. It's amazing. And then I did, and I was like, oh, I am an idiot. It is great.
It feels so good. And if you roll the 3-for-1, you have the money. It's just like, it's a very devastating.
Yeah, it's powerful.
It's very devastating.
All right.
My removal is nice, too.
My last card is going to generate some hate mail. I'm aware of this. It is...
We'll give you a second to explain yourself, whatever it may be.
It's the Sith Holocron. Now, I realize that many of you, and maybe most of you out there, think it is a top 3 card in the game. And I would agree with you. But I've seen more and more a segment of the population that say things like this. Holocron's good, don't get me wrong. But, now here comes the mitigation, right? Like, it's too slow. Disarm handles it. All removal handles it. It's just too easily handled. And to some degree, I agree with that. Like, it's gotten to the point where when I get a Holocron on the board, I just kind of assume it's not going to resolve. Something's going to happen to it. But the mere fact that it costs 0 and you are using your removal dice on this die every turn or wasting a disarm on it, that is a huge accomplishment for a 0-cost card, Jason. Am I insane here or what?
It is an absolutely insane card. And I agree with the fact that, like, you will pull so much removal just by its existence. It is worth its weight just for that. Yeah. Even if you never, ever resolved it, if you rolled it every turn, I promise it's going to make its money back. Not its money back because it costs 0, but it's going to prove its worth.
Yeah, I think for me the big difference is I think a lot of people run it with like 2 force throws, 2 mind probes, every expensive ability they can get that they would not play unless they holocron it out. And I've come way away from that. I only usually play 1 mind probe unless it's a deck that makes a ton of money. Still play the 2 force throws because the card is just bananas good. But I really only play abilities that I want, that I would be willing to pay for. Or maybe like 1 extra one just to have a little more opportunity to use it with the Holocron. But like I said, I kind of assume that it's not going to trigger at this point. Like, I'm not building turns around, I'm going to Holocron, I'm going to roll it, then I'm going to Mind Probe him in the face. Like, that's not how I play it. It's very much of, I'm just playing Destiny, and I have this busted card that if they let it go, they're screwed.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think its power is in its simplicity and its threat, and it will just generate value no matter what really comes of it. I really can't say any more than that. It does work.
All right, Jason, what's your last card here?
That is a great question. I've been sitting here looking at this list of cards, and I've been really thinking about.
It's fine.
No, I have a fifth. A fifth.
Okay.
My fifth is probably my favorite upgrade in the game. I think it's very good. I think that's currently limited because people look at this color of character and this brand of character, and they don't see it as necessarily the strongest. But I think in every deck that includes this, you need to include this card, and that is Scout. Okay. Scout to me is just value. We've already talked about knowing what's in an opponent's hand before, but for me, when you roll the Scout special, it's just one of the greatest feelings. Generally, you hit. It's like pretty much like remove one of their removal cards.
Yep.
And
look at their hand.
Know everything in their hand.
Yeah, I agree.
To me, it's insane. And whenever I play it and I resolve the special the very first time, I now feel in control of the game. And I very rarely make missteps once I have Scout out, and
Yep.
you know, you're gonna make a misplay every once in a while because the hand is generally unknown, and for you to actually know what that is, it's massive, especially if you're playing red because you're playing generally guns, so like you're really weak to a lot of the big removal,
Oh, yeah.
and it's like, do I take this free 2 damage or do I look to further modify it? You know, like if you have a one, exactly, if you have a 1 damage and a +1 modifier from a rebel trooper, like this, resolving that too if they have the dodge out, putting them in tough decisions, things of that nature. Yep. It's very powerful. It also has another thing I love, and because you're playing red, it's you're playing generally cheap stuff unless you're playing Launch Bay and Black One. Mm-hmm. Is it's the 2 disrupt for 1 resource, and it's generally I have an advantage over you in economy, and I can now press that leverage on you to make you remove that. And Akbar very can quickly, if you're playing like an Akbar deck or even like a Rebel Trooper with Scout, when you roll them out, you put them in that decision if they're either gaining resources on the back end of their turn, or if you're rolling out that person early, you can put them to a decision early on. I really enjoy it, and I think Scout is just a very fantastic card.
The only thing I don't like about it is I tend not to play Red Hero, and so it always happens to me rather than for me. And I freaking hate this card. As soon as it hits the table, I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to sculpt every single one of my plays, the whole rest of the game, around this stupid 1-cost upgrade that just wrecks me. I just wish it was a yellow villain card. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and it's funny because like you can't spend removal to remove it because it's doing its job. Like that's its job.
Exactly. Like what? I'm gonna really electroshock that to save my 0-cost card? Like this is madness.
Or to save the electroshock itself. Like it doesn't work like that, obviously. So you want to electroshock something else because you know it's coming. Yep. Or is them not knowing what's in your hand that important? Like there's no good. There's no win. There's no winning.
It's the
worst. I really do enjoy it, and as a focus.
Yep.
Lo and behold.
Okay. We're done with our underrated cards. Again, I'm sure some of you out there think that we're idiots and these are not underrated at all, and they are the best cards in the game. And that's why we think they're underrated, because they are good and someone's going to love them. I have an idea, though, that I want to run by you, Jason. So I think we can agree there are a couple cards in the game that are a little overpowered or a little undercosted. I mean, we generally toss out Sith Holocron when we talk about this. So I have an idea of how to have a small fix to this. Here's my plan. You tell me what you think. So it costs, each character costs a certain amount of points to put in a deck, right? What if there was, for competitive play only, of course, if you're not playing in tournaments, it really doesn't matter, but you can have a list of cards that cost a point to play in your deck. So, for instance, Sith Holocron costs a point to play it. So you could play 2, and it would cost you 2 of your squad points to put this in. You could put in 1 for only 1 squad point. The point is, you can still play these really powerful cards, but it kind of impacts the type of characters you can run. And this was really inspired by the Elite Palpatine costing 28, right? So now there's something you're doing with these last 2 points. By making that decision, you're leaving yourself the option to play Holocron for free in there, or whatever card we decide is a little bit, too aggressively costed and needs a tiny balancing mechanic. What do you think about this?
I personally don't like it. I think that the game is built to have those 30-point pairings, and by making people like it's so subjective, you kind of ruin a lot of deck concepts by putting some of these cards on the list. Yep. And furthermore, it doesn't do anything to characters. You'd have to just increase their points, which I guess is okay. I mean, that's fine for me too, but I'm not so sure that this is going to fix the issue that you have. I like that if they don't plan to do anything to like help someone like Palpatine out, that this would be an option to have some of these. But I think that maybe if you had any of the cards on the list, your deck costs 1 point more, that would be just such a big nerf in the first place.
Sure.
Like just 1 point. Yeah. Like there's so many decks that just don't exist if you put 1 point down. Yep. So obviously that would be the most extreme penalty I can imagine for bringing any suite of cards, because I do believe the game is pretty well balanced.
Yeah, I agree with that too. The big problem with this idea is that it doesn't fix a deck like Jango Veers, because Jango is the card that's the problem. There's no one card in Jango Veers where I think if we just took that card away from Jango Veers would not dominate anymore. It's really you have to take Django away from Django Veers.
Yeah, I think that there's only 3 cards that really need such an update, and I don't think that it's really going to fix them, and it's only because they kind of were broken in an interesting way. Only one of them is overtly powerful, and it's a card that goes in your deck, and the other one's a character, and then the other one is corner case. So
what's the other one?
It's either Millennium Falcon or Hyperspace Jump.
Okay.
I'd probably just put it on Hyperspace Jump and make. Yeah. Unfortunately, that makes it a little bit of a worse card, but it doesn't seem like recursion seems to be a plan from this deck or from this game.
Yeah,
there's like 2 recursion cards in the whole game, I think, right now, maybe 3, as far as cards out of that go from your discard pile into play or into your hand. So it's either Hyperspace Jump gets removed from play when you play it, or the Millennium Falcon removes things from play when it uses its ability. Yeah. Either or. I don't want to punish the Falcon too much because it is rather expensive, but it is rather thematic for it to be able to Hyperspace Jump. So I'm not sure if that's actually important to them, but if that's the case, you can just put on the Falcon. If the other way, you put on that. And then it's Sith Holocron. Probably should just get discarded when you use it, and then Django should just be 13-17. Those are the things that I would probably do to the game.
Yeah, I agree. I'm saying if we don't want to errata any cards. The other cool thing is this could be a neat, at least, let's say they don't change any of the cards in the game now. You could balance a whole set around this idea just generally. Like, you could just print squad costs on some cards. So it's like, okay, this deck is too good if it has this card. You know, this card is really strong. Let's balance it by giving it a squad cost. I think that could be kind of interesting.
Yeah, it definitely could be. And I actually, after thinking about it a little bit, I don't hate the idea that, like, if your deck includes any of these cards, your deck is reduced, the total number of points you have is reduced by 1. Because literally that 1 is going to hamper so many things. Like, oh, I have 2 Sith Holocrons. Well, your deck is only 20. You can only have 29 points now. Like, what are you running at that point? Like, it's a lot harder for you to be able to make the tip-top decks. But like I said, it does really punish a lot of things, so it's interesting to see what would be best for that.
It is an interesting mechanic. All right, let's move on to our last segment. I always like to address some viewer questions if we have any, and this week Jay Stevenson asks us a 2-part question. First is, when do you want to go second to get the shields? I'm assuming he means at the start of the game. And do you want to place the shields to protect your true priority target, or to do it as a deke? You put it on the wrong guy to try to make him go, dang, he's got shields, I better take him down. So let's start with the first half. Do you often find yourself wanting to go second to get the shields, or to go first to have that advantage?
I mean, unfortunately, it truly is a case-by-case basis for both the deck and the matchup that you're in. You know, if you're playing someone like Han Rei, you should not let them have the graveyard. You know, if you are playing against Django, if they're running wastes to remove your die, that's really frustrating, so you might not want that. But on the other side, you might want that damage reduction of the shields. So it's really just a toss-up. I personally like to go first and take my battlefield, but I do believe that the shields are very powerful. I've also been playing a lot of red deck, which often likes the battlefield, so I should probably give that a caveat where having it is good.
Yep, and I'm the reverse. I haven't been playing red decks with dug in and stuff very much, so I tend to lean towards wanting to go second and get the shields, but like you said, there are a lot of matchups where I'm not going to let that happen. I'm pretty much never going to give my opponent the Emperor's Throne Room. Like, I had someone was playing the Kylo Vader deck, and they showed me Emperor's Throne Room, and I'm like, I'm not sure this is a great card for this deck, but I'm not really running specials, so there's no way I'm giving you that card.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that it does depend on the battlefield. It is very particular, but I don't think that taking the shields it doesn't really hamper you too much in a majority of them, and a lot of times they're running something that's going to help you. So it's not so bad.
Yeah, it's funny. I hear some people say something like, you don't want the shields because Kylo's Saber exists, and I think that's completely absurd. It costs 3 first of all. You have to roll the special. You have to have them not mitigate the special. Like that to me, that doesn't even factor in the decision.
No way. That doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
Not for those 2 shields, at least.
Yeah. So maybe what do you think about the other half? When you take those shields, or just generally, let's say turn 1, you get stuck and you have to put 2 shields on a character. Are you putting it on your primary guy that you know needs to stay alive, or are you going to try to trick your opponent into thinking that the Tusken Raider needs to live.
I think that is cute, but if you're playing against a player who's seasoned and understands what they need to do, the shield placement will not make them question their decision.
Yep, I 100% agree. If you're playing against a player who is not good enough to realize what should be happening, you should be beating them anyway. A good player is going to see through your trick, and then you've just cost yourself 2 health or 3 health on your main character.
Yeah, it could be a really big cost. So I think that definitely leaving it as it is, it's a good idea.
I mean, to me, I do different things. Like, I won't do it with shields because that's health. What I love to do, if I have Vader Raider and I get a holocron right off the bat, I just stick it on the Raider. And I'm like, here you go.
I would stick it on the Raider too.
Look at the Vader. Look at the Raider. Don't you want to kill him? Look how scary he is now. He has a holocron. He's scary.
Well, another thing about holocron is it's going to produce force powers that are not like redeploy.
Yep.
And then you're still going to have Darth Vader bearing down on you.
Yep.
Also, technically, the Raider is way better at resolving those dice. Like if you go to Mind Probe on them, like that's where you want a Mind Probe.
Yep.
So it's good either way.
Yep. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up today. Thanks so much, everyone, for watching. Again, you can find us hosted at swdestiny.com. Thanks so much for Broken Egg Games for supporting us. You can go there, put TG Games in the discount code coupon at the end when you check out. Go to the Patreon, Tiny Grimes. Join in the conversation. We're having some good stuff about a tier list right now. And Jason, where can people find you?
They can just find me around. I'm JB Flans everywhere I am. So definitely thanks to you guys for supporting the channel and supporting Tiny in this effort. And he's doing lots of great stuff. So although we give him a hard time, I do appreciate what he's doing as well. It's good for the community.
We give him a hard time. I never give him a hard time. That guy's amazing.
You really don't give him a hard time, and you're very good about that.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.